All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleisher Show, broadcasting live from Judea to the world. You are part of it wherever you are. And I am, after a very long period of cleaning this house, getting ready for Pesach, and getting rid of chametz, which is leaven stuff, and also making matzah, and all the stuff that I usually do, along with my family, who worked very hard to prepare this whole house. And boy, Pesach, it's quite an experience. And really, the secret of it is the rejuvenation and renewal of the Jewish people. That's the real secret of Passover. All the hard work, all the preparation is the secret sauce of Jewish eternity. So that's why it's such a powerful thing. And that's why it's so challenging, because it's not easy to ward off the greatest of all energies that are out there, which is, other than the God energy, is the energy of death. And the Jewish people have been taught the secrets to avert the energy of death. And that's why they are an eternal people, because God has given us the secrets to continue to manifest throughout time. We have a great show for you. And first up is a very special man whose name is Aryeh King. He's the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, and him and I got together at a beautiful construction site in Jerusalem. And the exciting story of what that construction site is all about is coming up to you right now, as I recorded with him, really about the miracle of the rebirth of Jerusalem. Here is Aryeh King, Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, just in time for Passover, on the rebirth of the Holy City. All right, folks, Yishai Fleisher here, and I'm in beautiful Jerusalem, and I'm with the person who represents Jerusalem, Aryeh King. He's the Deputy Mayor, one of the Deputy Mayors of Jerusalem, and I asked him to come here. He came on his motorcycle into this very dusty, my nice suit is getting all dusted up, in this beautiful construction site. And the minute he came here, he pulled up, he's like, isn't this beautiful? I said, this is the most beautiful thing in the world. This is Givat HaMatos neighborhood that is being built right now. Aryeh, Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, you've had a lot to do with this project, this whole area that's being built. Tell me a little bit about it. I've been so excited about it for a long time. Tell me the history of this place.
The history of this place is that we are in a neighborhood. First of all, where are we? We are between Talpiot industrial area and Gilo and Bethlehem in the south. This hill, called Givat HaMatos, was zoned at 2015. 10 years ago, was zoned for a neighborhood, Jewish neighborhood. Altogether, about 3,000 Jewish apartments were planned to be built here 10 years ago. Unfortunately, the governments of Israel at 2015-16 didn't allow Jews that bought this land to build what was approved for them in every legal way that should be. Jews paid for the land, they paid for the taxes, for the betterment tax. The government took the money, but they couldn't build. So, at the year 2021, me, together with 3 other owners, we appealed to the Supreme Court against the government. We paid for the land. We paid you, the government, for the taxes because you improved our zoning here, but you are not allowing us to build here. So the government gave, in the Supreme Court in Israel, they gave an answer that said that they don't have the money. The poor Israeli government don't have 260 million shekel for the infrastructure, for the bringing here electricity, water, roads. So I went out of the court and I called my friend, the mayor of Jerusalem, Moshe Leon. I called Moshe. I told Moshe, we all of us want to build here a Jewish neighborhood in Jerusalem. For so many years, no Jewish neighborhood was built in Jerusalem.
No new Jewish
right. Neighborhood. So I told Moshe, listen, the government is saying they don't have the money. Maybe we can give a loan to the government. He said,
the municipality of Jerusalem.
Of Jerusalem will give, the municipality of Jerusalem will give a loan to the government, to the housing ministry of Israel.
Jerusalem, it's so rich that it's going to give a
We
loan.
are, just to understand, we are the poorest municipality in Israel. Poor municipality. We all the time getting money from the government because we don't have enough money. So the mayor of Jerusalem said, Aryeh, tell them, go back to the court and tell, we will give the loan to the government. And you should know, all of us should remember it forever. This neighborhood was built thanks to the mayor of Jerusalem today, Moshe Leon, by understanding that this is the timing for him to make a decision that forever, because of him, Jews will be building here and living here. So this is first story.
Wow.
Now, just to understand.
Just so everybody understands, the reason we picked the spot is because right behind us right now, it's happening. It's being built right now. There's tons of workers. I don't know if you can see with the far lens there. There's tons of workers. They're working. It's already towards the end of the day. But we picked the spot just to see it really happening. And to us, this dusty, dirty construction site is the most beautiful thing in the world because it's really happening, lemaaseh, really, like in a real way.
I will say something else, Yishai.
Yes, sir.
This land, it's not dust. It's a holy land. People all over the world should kiss this land, this dust. It's not the dust. It's a health of Eretz Israel. And these people working here, these workers, I am jealous to be part of building Jerusalem. This is not anymore, praying and dreaming. It's happening. These workers, employees here, are part of making a history here in Jerusalem. And each one have his own way to be part of this movement of building Jerusalem.
That's right.
It started in King David time, and it's happening in our time, Yishai. It's not anymore, King David, King Solomon. It's today, Yishai and Aryeh. Each one of us can be part of this movement that started at the time of King David. And I'll tell you another story.
Yeah, let's go. We love stories.
Something crazy. Did I told you where to meet me?
No.
No, you choose the spot, okay?
Right.
So you should understand.
I said, come here. I sent him I scouted this area. I looked for a good spot. I sent him a location.
So I follow your location. But exactly where we stand, exactly where this crane is, and up to where we are now, this land, listen to the story, you will not believe me, but I will give you the names if you want. At the year 2018, I'm getting a phone call from a lawyer from Tel Aviv. He's calling me in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, something like that. He told me, Aryeh, listen, I have a client from LA, from Los Angeles.
Who called you?
A lawyer from Tel Aviv.
Okay.
He said, I have a client from Los Angeles, and he just now left my office in Tel Aviv. In fact, he didn't left. I threw him out of my office. Why is that? Because he owned 3 plots in Givat HaMatos, where we are, and he came with the Arab that came to sign a contract. This Jew from LA wanted to sell to this Arab 3 plots. The 3 plots are exactly where we are now standing, this area, this corner. So he called me, the lawyer calling me, so Aryeh, I took all of his files, I threw it out to the corridor of my building, in the building where my office is, and I told him I don't want to see him anymore.
Why?
Because he said, the lawyer, I am not going to sell a piece of land, not in Israel, not in Jerusalem, to Arabs. Never. So I told him, where can I find this guy? He told me, listen, tonight is
the landowner.
The landowner from LA is staying in Farah Maccabiah Hotel in Ramat Gan, and he have a flight tonight. He's leaving tonight to LA. So he gave me the name, and he told me, go and find him. Maybe you will convince him. I left my office. I took my car. I drove to Ramat Gan, and I'm coming to the lobby to the hotel, and I'm asking, do you have this name, this visitor here in your hotel? So the guy at the desk told me he just did checkout because he
just left. He just left.
Just left the hotel. He said, did he left? He went out of the door. He said, no. You see the guy there with the suitcase? This is him. So I went to this guy with the suitcase. He's sitting in the lobby with his suitcase in both of his sides. So I sat in front of him. He doesn't know me. I told him, look, I was told that you are planning to sell 3 plots in Jerusalem to some Arab. Is it true? He said, who are you to ask me this question? I told him, I am a citizen of Jerusalem. I care about Jerusalem. Is it true that you are going to sell pieces of Jerusalem to an Arab? So he started shouting to his wife that she just ordered coffee. She is shouting to his wife to call it to the security. The security of the hotel is coming. He's asking me, who are you? I tell him, I came to this guy. I don't know him, but he wants to sell his plots in Jerusalem to an Arab. Are you a visitor? I was asked. I said, no, I came to him. So they told me, no, you need to leave.
Are you a visitor of the hotel?
Yeah. I said, I'm not a visitor. So they said, you are disturbing this person. So you need to, we will escort you out. I told this guy, never mind his name. I told him, look, did you sign? He said, yeah, it's game over. I already signed. I got the money. I left the hotel. I called the lawyer. I told the lawyer, listen, do you know where he lives in LA? He said, of course, I know him personally. He was my client for 40 years. When he bought the land, I was a lawyer when he bought the land from Arab. Now he wants to sell it to another Arab. So I asked the lawyer, do you know what the terms in the contract with the Arab? He said, yes. The Arab paid him for full price for one of the plots, and for the other 2, the Arab paid the option. So it wasn't really done. So I published in Arutz 7, in channels in
Israel National News.
I published this story, and I said I am looking for somebody to save these 2 plots that are not yet finalized. Maybe we can save them. There's a guy from LA. He was offered $180,000 for these 2 plots. And I'm calling to anybody in the world that can save it to call me, and we will go to LA and save it. It was Friday. The meeting in the hotel was at Thursday. Friday it was in Israel National News. Before Shabbat, a friend of mine, let's call him Kevin, he told me, I'm in LA, let's go and meet the guy in LA. So I said, okay, but I'm in Israel. He said, take the first flight, Motzei Shabbat, Saturday night, and let's meet in LA Sunday morning. And here's what we did. We flew, and then when we flew, the lawyer told me who is the rabbi of this Jewish owner. So at Monday morning, we are coming to a synagogue. The name of the synagogue was donated by this guy. And we are coming in Monday, sitting in the synagogue. The rabbi told us, Aryeh, don't worry, I'm taking care of it. And we are sitting there, and then we get to Kriyat Torah, reading from the Torah. And I was called. And I see the guy that I saw in the hotel sitting there. I didn't talk with him, but I saw him. So the rabbi is calling me to the Torah to bless, to go up to the Torah. When I finished, the rabbi is knocking on the desk, on the bama, and he's saying like that, this guy, his name is Aryeh King, he came from Jerusalem to save one of our congregants, member of this synagogue. Mm-hmm. He came to save his soul.
This is a good rabbi.
And Aryeh is leaving at Thursday back to Israel. And the person sitting there.
He recognized you?
I think yes, he recognized me. And he said, the person that he came to save his soul will be called to the Torah.
Will never be called to the Torah.
Will be opening the Aron HaKodesh,
the ark,
until I hear from this Mr. King that he completed and he saved our Knesset member, synagogue member.
That he saved his soul.
His soul.
He saved his soul by helping him do the right thing.
Exactly.
Right.
So we finished.
This is quite a rabbi.
Yeah.
That's not a joke rabbi. That's all the way.
Absolutely, in LA. And this guy is one
You'll
of.
have to tell me afterwards which rabbi this is.
So we finished. We took out the tefillin. We finished davening. The rabbi and then somebody else in this synagogue that he owned a big chain of coffee bean.
Sure.
He's inviting us to drink a coffee in some boulevards there.
Sunset Boulevard, Rodeo Drive.
Something in LA. So we go and sit there. While we are sitting there, the rabbi sitting with us, the rabbi is getting a phone call. Tell this Mr. King to come to my office. So we're going to his office after the breakfast, and the guy sitting there, and my friend that is from Australia came with me, and we saved the land.
Wow.
He saved the land.
Who's he? Who he?
Kevin. I was the shaliach.
Wait, there's the guy who's buying now. There's also the rabbi. There's you, and there's the guy who changed his mind.
Exactly.
Or his mind changed.
Look, Kevin paid everything, including the penalty. In penalty, because in the contract he was saying that if he will not complete or he withdraw from the contract, he will need to pay penalty.
So you got all three pieces? Two. And the third?
One we lost. The third is here. We lost. This we lost. The best one, the higher one.
Wow.
We lost it.
Wow.
These two ones was saved.
Wow.
By person that wanted to save piece of land in Jerusalem.
Why was this wealthy guy selling the land to Arabs?
It's
all right, whatever.
Something in the family. I don't want to go into the details, but at least we saved these two.
Wow.
And thanks to this rabbi, and to Israel National News, and to this Kevin guy, today on these two plots here, there will be 32 Jewish apartments with Jewish families moving in. And this is one story, Yishai. This is why I like this. When you told me, let's meet in Givat HaMatos.
Yeah.
You breathe here. It's a holy hair. You know, it's that, and when, by the way, we see what we see in the background, the building. This is really, it's remarkable to see that. But the view from here.
Oh, it's amazing. It's an amazing view. Right now as we're standing here, maybe it's not clear, but I'm going to shoot some B-roll to explain. We're in one of the highest points of all of Jerusalem. When you stand up here in this hill, you could see a huge Jerusalem. And this is the biggest Jerusalem that ever existed. King Solomon did not see a Jerusalem this big. The Maccabees did not see a Jerusalem this big. I mean, there was a beautiful temple. There will be another one. But okay. But this is a giant, massive Jerusalem. And this hill, why is it called Givat HaMatos, which means the hill of the airplane? Why is it called that?
There was an airplane at 1967, 66, before the war, that Israeli airplane that flew here and was taken down by the Jordanian, and it fell here.
It crashed here.
It crashed here.
Okay, wait, let's get to, that was awesome. Great story. And the story there is about redemption. In Hebrew, we call it Geulah. Recently, Jewish press asked me to write a few words on the word Geulah. And I said to them, people have come to believe that Geulah is something that happens to you. But in the Tanakh, the word Geulah, redemption, is something you do. You do it. You give Geulah to the land, you buy out the land, you buy out somebody who became a slave or a servant. Geulah is something that you actively do. We saw it also in the book of Ruth. You buy it out. So this is Geulah. Now, somebody's watching this video with yourself, Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Aryeh King. We're here at Givat HaMatos, and they're saying, okay, Aryeh, now I want to be part of it. I want to buy one of these apartments. How much is it going to cost? Tachlis, help me out. How does it, can a person buy here? Somebody from outside of the land? How much is it going to cost them?
Look, there are a lot of signs here of companies that bought the land here, and it's going to be sold between 3 to 4 million shekel apartments. And I'm telling you, Isha, you saw with me, it's one of the best investment, but best views.
Yes.
You have to the south, you can see Bethlehem,
Yeah.
you can see Erodion,
Yeah.
you can see all the way up to Hebron. To the west, you can see to the main road entering from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and you see all of Jerusalem
Right.
in your hand.
You know, I've known you now for about 15 years. You've always been passionate about the whole land of Israel, but specifically about Jerusalem. Then you got elected into the council, into the Jerusalem municipality. By the way, I'm also a municipality member, but not in Jerusalem, and I'm learning a lot. But what does it feel like to do this job? What does it feel like to be a deputy mayor of Jerusalem? What is that like for you on a day-to-day?
Kadosh Baruch Hu, thank you. Really, to bless Hashem.
And
Bless Hashem every day, to be part of really preparing Jerusalem to Mashiach time, to temple time.
you know what you said to me years ago? One day we were walking together. You don't remember it, but I remember it. I said to you, what's the plan for this thing? And you said to me, Yishai, I don't plan for a year. I plan for 20 years down the line. That's the way I'm thinking about this whole thing. I remember that phrase very much. It had an impact on me. But you're not just, this is one of the projects. You wanted to actually interview with me to talk about other places in Eastern Jerusalem and other places. Has October 7th changed the pace? Is there a difference out here?
Look, in one meeting in the district committee yesterday, 2,200 apartments were approved. Regularly, if you were meeting me 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, every 10 apartments that were approved to be built in East Jerusalem were open the news in Israel and in the world.
The news would start with it. Yeah.
Started with it was the headlines.
Right.
Another 10 apartments in Mount of Olives, in Bet Hanina, Jabal Mukam, East Jerusalem. Yesterday, 2,200 apartments in East Jerusalem. Nobody is
Where is
speaking
this?
about
Where is
it.
this?
Some of them are in neighborhood called Surbacher.
Which is down here, close by.
Right,
to us.
close by. Some of them in Jabal Mukaber.
Same thing.
Some of them in Isawiya, next to Mount of Scopus Hadassah Hospital and the university.
Which is also a very jihadist neighborhood.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very radical people living there. In Shimon HaTzadik, or people call it Sheikh Jarrah, over 300 apartments.
Wow.
Yishai, it's insane. So nobody could dream about something like that happening so quietly.
And how do you explain it?
Because of the war. All the focus, all the tension is not about Jerusalem. And thank God, and I can say, the mayor of Jerusalem and some ministers in the government,
Like who?
like Minister of Housing, Goldknopf, like Minister...
Ultra Orthodox, by the way.
Yeah, also Orthodox.
Just to point out, 'cause sometimes people are like, what are they doing? Okay, he's helping build Jerusalem.
Orthodox is building everywhere he could. Minister of the Police, Itamar Ben-Gvir. Minister of Jerusalem, Meir Porush, another ultra-Orthodox minister. They took the opportunity that nobody cared about what's happening in Jerusalem, and they are changing dramatically with all aspects. A lot of money being poured to East Jerusalem to change the climate. One of them is by so many new development being approved. Second, a lot of infrastructure, new roads. For example, all of this area was connected to the East Jerusalem
Electrical grid.
company. Not more anymore. They cancelled it. You remember when we lived in Mount Olives, how much we suffered from being connected to the East Jerusalem company? Here people will live like in middle of Jerusalem, Western Jerusalem, but this is East Jerusalem. And this is exactly what I'm also talking.
East Jerusalem, that means lands liberated in the 6-Day War.
Exactly.
And that were, although it has been formally recognized by Israel as part of Israel, right?
Yeah, it's people consider it behind of the green line.
Right.
But again, my motivation every day is to
erase that line.
Erase this line, exactly. Right. That nobody, no tourist.
They will never know.
No, exactly.
Right.
He will drive his car. I will not know. I went into East Jerusalem. He will not smell it. He will not see something strange. It will look the same.
That's right.
East and West. This is my my agenda from morning to night.
Some people, I wanted to ask you a funny question. Some people, the old timers in Jerusalem, are like, wow, Jerusalem is really changing. It used to be this quaint, small, everybody knew one another. Now it's this big city, it's got these high rises, and they complain a little bit. What do you say to them?
Look, first, they are right. This is true. But all of the world is changing.
Right.
And we have a challenge. By the way, I'm against all of these high-rise buildings because I think
You want to limit it to like 4 or 5 floors, what?
I want it to be maximum 10, 15 floors. And what do I, but so people will ask me, so where people will live? If you will not build enough, it will be so expensive, people will leave the city. The answer is to spread Jerusalem, to connect Jerusalem to Gush Etzion, to connect Jerusalem to Ma'ale Adumim, to connect Jerusalem to Givat Ze'ev. And by that, we adding more Jews to Jerusalem and building in this other, it's more desert areas, okay, where we don't need to damage natural forests, we don't need to damage water, natural reservoir, reserve. It's just a desert, we can develop it, and this is my dream, to see Jerusalem continue expanding to the east, to the south, and to the north. And what we see here, it's part of, again, my dream. It's becoming reality. And I call it every Jew. You can be part of, and it's your dream, so be part of your dream.
It's the dream of ages. It's the dream of ages. I want to remind us that the Jewish sages say that Jerusalem, the whole land of Israel will one day be called Jerusalem, and the whole world will be called the land of Israel. But certainly Jerusalem is meant to spread out, and it is spreading out. You see it's happening. For example, a place like the Tomb of Rachel, which used to be outside of Jerusalem in Bethlehem, is now inside of Jerusalem, and regular buses go in there. Its light is starting to spread. The Torah out of here is starting to spread. It's inviting people all the time. Also, there's a sage's statement that the land of Israel is hilly so that it can be flanned out. It'll stretch out and house many people. Here's a mountain. It's being chopped in, and lots of Jewish people and Jerusalem are going to live here, and Jerusalem is getting bigger. It's really happening in our time, and you inspire us, Ari King. You are Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, and you've helped build this. And it was my good idea that Hashem put in my mind to meet you here today.
By the way, Yishai, I must tell you, but I see it for sure that the praise, that people that are praying for Jerusalem should understand that tefillot are working.
The prayers are working.
The prayers are working. What we see here, what we see, all the cranes, all around us, all this new development, if you would ask me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would say it will not happen. It will not happen. All the government was against us. All the world was against us. And look what's happening here. There's no question. Hashem is playing here the role, and we are just...
Yes, God is playing the role, but it's the tenacity of people like yourself and many others, the tenacity to cleave to this, to cleave to our dream, and to push back. For example, one of the things that you did also recently was you helped kick out UNRWA, that were holding on to a huge compound in Jerusalem. You pushing those bad guys out.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a part of our work is of course to do these positive things, a set of to do the good things, but also to kick out from Jerusalem or from entire Israel our enemy. Our enemy is not just the radical Muslims. By the way, there are a lot of Muslims that they enjoy and they want us to succeed. They want to stay in Jerusalem because for them it's a nightmare to be like the Arabs living in Jericho, Hebron, or in Nablus.
Under the PA.
Under the PA. For them it's a nightmare. So they want us to succeed. But there are other enemies that's coming from outside the country, from Europe, from the United States, that they, like UNRWA, it's a United Nations organization that is poisoning the brain of every child in East Jerusalem. And they are poisoning every place that they could and educating the Arabs in with anti-Semitic books. There's no existence for Israel. between the Jordan River to the sea.
They erase Israel. They erase it
Israel.
and replace it with Palestine.
And it's happening here in Jerusalem,
Right.
in our capital. So yes, by the way, I together with David Badin, Mr. David Badin, he was the first one to do all the research about UNRWA, and together with him and with Knesset members, we were able to pass two laws that are forbidding activity of UNRWA in Jerusalem, and Baruch Hashem, again, first compound in Jerusalem, it was closed. But I hope there will be a Jewish neighborhood that will be built on the same compound, and also some museum of the IDF, remembering all the IDF soldiers that thanks to them we are here and we are all over Israel, and UNRWA were part of the war that we are still in the middle of it.
Every UNRWA school was a Hamas base, command and control base, or missile base. Everyone.
And the same is in Jerusalem. They have in Jerusalem 6 schools, and if you go in, it's the same curriculum like the study in Gaza, the same. So we need to finish all of that, to kick them out, and if Arabs want to be educated, they could be educated like any Arab that's living in Israel, not with this anti-Semitic and pro-terrorist curriculum.
Ari King, thank you so much for being with me in this beautiful neighborhood.
Thank you.
I just want you to know that for me, really, just to see it being built is a pleasure, and to see you here, to be part of it, it's an amazing thing. I think that Deputy Mayor Ari King gives over that energy of what we're doing here in the land of Israel. God bless you folks wherever you are. Keep supporting our efforts here in the land.
And continue praying for Jerusalem. We need your praise. And when you come to Jerusalem, you will come and see how your praise becomes, where Hashem, God, listen to your praise.
Amen.
Don't worry, the Yishai Fleisher show will be right back, so stay tuned.
All right, that was indeed a very special interview with Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Aryeh King. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for being part of our fight to beautify the land of Israel, and you can be part of it at fightforisrael.org, fightforisrael.org. Next up is something completely different. This is my discussion with a young academic, young intellectual. Her name is Karis Ria, and she is studying the effects of what's happening on the right wing, which is becoming part of the right wing, which is becoming anti-Israel. I'm talking about anti-Israel media people on the right, the so-called woke right, and the danger that it brings with it. Check out my discussion with Karis Ria about the dangers of the woke right and how it's affecting young minds across the world, and certainly in the United States. Here's Karis Ria and myself in discussion.
We have with us Karis Ria, who is a producer at the Epoch Times. She's a fellow at the Middle East Forum. She's writing a book on this issue of the woke right problem. And I'm very excited to speak with you about this because I think it's fascinating. It's a little bit mysterious. And so let's just start off. First thing, tell us a little bit about yourself, where are you from, and how you got to this issue.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I am a huge Yishai Fleisher fan, FYI. And also, I just have to preface this and say that I'm not, these are my own views and do not represent Epoch Times or any media affiliate that I work with.
Okay.
That being said, I am originally from the Bay Area, a classic Bay Area liberal, I guess is how I grew up. And then I moved to New York for college, and then I stayed there for 18 years. I took a break for a year in 2016 to come to grad school in Israel, and then I moved to DC a couple years ago. But starting out as a liberal, it took me a long time to make the turn towards MAGA conservatism. It wasn't just like overnight, right? I became an independent, and then I became a conservative, and then I became a Trump conservative. And now I'm seeing the exact same behaviors and tactics and values within the MAGA camp that made me leave the Democratic Party to begin with. And so that is incredibly concerning to me.
I mean, that's almost crazy talk. You're saying that that on the right you're seeing the same phenomenons as you saw on the left. You left the left because of its kookiness and craziness. Now you're saying you're seeing that on the right.
Yeah.
That's really scary. And on this show, and in my concern for Israel, we're seeing a lot of that anti-Israel, and it's like surprising, right? Like we don't know how to like eat it because it doesn't make exact sense to us.
Right. It's particularly insidious and sinister because unlike the left that is pretty outspoken about their agenda, tearing down the West, rebuilding America in their own image, the right does the same types of things, but they do it under the guise of conservative values. So like faith, freedom, family.
Right.
And yet they're actually trying to do what the left is trying to do, which is why they've garnered this moniker woke right. Now, some people don't like that term.
What do you mean? What is it? What is the same? What is this sameness that you're talking about?
So the sameness is that these individuals who claim to be part of the MAGA movement, claim to be America first, claim to be patriots, claim to be Trump supporters, I argue that they're none of that because they actually have the same anti-American and anti-Western and anti-Semitic values as the woke left does. Not only that.
How could that be? The woke left comes out of a godlessness, out of a submission to the jihad.
Right.
Right? A loss of identity,
right.
And therefore accepting upon themselves this like strong identity of jihadism.
Right.
Okay, that's where that psychologically comes from. On the right, these people are godly, full of American identity or other identity. They have an inner kind of strength. Why would they be pro-jihad or anti-Israel? Like, I can't understand the psychological...
Well, there's a lot of things to break down here. I mean, we have to look at the different elements that constitute wokeness or wokeism. There's certain tactics that everybody associates with wokeness today in 2025. Things like postmodernism, things like cancel culture, identity politics, intersectionality, a victimhood complex, bullying, self-righteousness. So these are anti-war, utopianism. These are all things that the right is doing, and we can go through each one, and I could give you examples of it. But in terms of just the anti-American element, the anti-Western element, while these individuals say that they're pro-America and pro-Trump, in actuality, they frequently endorse guests. They have guests on their show that are straight up CCP propagandists, Iranian shills, or Putin apologists. And so these individuals, not only do they entertain our enemies on their platforms, but they deny that these are our enemies at all.
Wow.
Even though there's no secret about the CCP's plans for America. It's pretty outspoken about what it's trying to do. It literally has a 100-year plan to destroy America. Iran, with its death to America chants, on a routine basis, on the streets and in the Supreme Council. And
okay, I know about China. I know about Iran.
Yeah.
But are you telling me that Tucker Carlson, who has been, and by the way, you pointed out something about platforming. Mm-hmm. Like the way that they do it is that they don't usually say it themselves. They just platform somebody else.
Sometimes they say it themselves.
Right. Like Candace will say it, right.
Yeah, and I mean, Tucker is really smart. He tends to be a little more sneaky, but people...
like he's dressed like all American. He's got this like red, this like woodsy background. He's like Mr.
Sure.
And by the way, I love his set, Yeah. It's not as good as this pizza set, but I love his set. But like he's playing it like...
He's like a regular lumberjack.
Right, so he's like Abercrombie and Finch and and he's like doing that thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard, like, are you saying that he's mouthing the ideas of Chinese Communist Party,
of
Qatar, of Iran?
Of course. I mean, he literally had Jeffrey Sachs on his podcast, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Jeffrey Sachs is a dyed-in-the-wool UN globalist. He literally works for like the UN Sustainability 2030 development goals. I mean, this is everything that the conservatives are supposed to be against. He's also a CCP state media talking head, and they bring him on because he will just bash America relentlessly, and that's what he does on Tucker's show. And you're like, wait a second, I thought Tucker is a patriot. That's CCP. Then Iran, yes. I mean, he has people on all the time that are talking about how war with Iran would be a disaster, not just because of like the casualties and the death and the suffering, but because There's no reason for it because essentially this is just a neocon plot, like by the Zionists.
Neocon is a new word, right? Like it's an old word, but today it means like a Zionist Jewish cabal
and
conspiracy.
just like on the left, it was a pejorative used on the left, right? Like if you're and I'm not a neoconservative, so I understand, and neither is Trump. But essentially, like instead of acknowledging the truth of the fact that like America has enemies, they've said they are our enemies. Instead, the woke right imagines that this is all some neocon conspiracy to draw us into war and to further bloat the military-industrial complex and to further serve the interests of Israel. And yeah,
right, Israel's a warmonger in their minds, right? It's a war creator, warmonger. It likes military. Netanyahu is this very powerful global.
He's a tyrant who has plans for a greater Israel.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but is able to lead America along using AIPAC and using
For sure. Israel's a client state of America. That's what they say.
Israel's a client state of America, or is America a client state of Israel?
No. They say Israel's a client state of America because they say America is just giving money to Israel, and Israel just has America wrapped around its finger and it has America hostage, and it's making America do what Israel wants. This is that's what they imagine. That's not too different from what we hear on the left in terms of Israel, in terms of Jews, Israeli Jews. So that's one element of how they're similar to the woke left, is just their kind of extreme anti-war, neo-isolationist posturing. And one of the reasons why this is so dangerous is because they're trying to make people imagine that this is actually Trump's foreign policy. Neo-isolationism is Trump's foreign policy. That is such an oversimplification of what Trump believes. Trump has been very clear about his foreign policy. It's peace through strength. It's what Sebastian Gorka calls the middle way between neo-isolationism and neoconservatism. It's being much more vigilant about how we spend taxpayer dollars abroad, security-wise, and being cognizant of how bloated the military-industrial complex has become. And while still carrying a big stick and understanding that we have enemies out there that need to fear us. And he also understands that we need to defend our allies that truly like America, not our pseudo allies like Western Europe, but the smaller states that actually align with America's values. Because if more aggressive rogue terrorist actors or nations like China or Russia or North Korea attack those little states and are successful, that's one step closer to us being vulnerable on our own soil. And we are trying to prevent a war on our own soil.
So what you're saying is cut down on the bloatedness, rein in monies that are being spent, taken away from the people, shrink government a little bit, but at the same time, fight the bad guys and don't let America not be a power around the world. And I have a friend who's very high up, and he says to me, Trump's outlook is very much about containing China. It's about China containment. Absolutely. And I'll tell you, you don't have to be even a big pro-American person to be concerned about the influence of China in this world. I get nervous even about Chinese cars. I'm like, is this car going to? I'm not going to buy a Chinese car, but is this car going to be like? I don't think you should go to that rally, Yishai. I think you should go back home.
Right.
I'm afraid of that kind of stuff.
It's a surveillance state, and they have a military-civil fusion policy. It's a dual-use policy. Right. Every single commercial activity that they can engage in within their laws, like the CCP is allowed to use whatever civil application of anything they do for their military and political purposes.
All right, but one thing that you haven't answered for me yet is the why. I don't think I understand why. I don't think I understood totally what is the motivation. Let's watch a little bit of Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson or Candace as they preach this anti-Israelism, also anti-Churchill, pro-Hitler,
right?
All this kind of stuff, and all these other folks. I want us to feel a little bit. So let's watch a little bit of a clip that relates to how the new woke right is talking.
Keep thinking that about the Israel-Palestine thing. I'm probably the only person in the world who doesn't have very strong feelings on it. When that becomes the biggest news story in the United States, a conflict across the globe, and when these protests are blown so out of proportion by all news media, you have to think, like, maybe this is not a reflection of reality. Like, maybe I'm being played here a little bit, right? Or maybe I'm being played a lot.
What if that is what is happening right now in Hollywood, if there is just a very small ring of specific people who are using the fact that they are Jewish to shield themselves from any criticism? It's food for thought, right? And I think, again, there have been enough people that are speaking out about a ring in Hollywood, also a ring potentially in DC, that we should start to ask those questions, all of us.
Okay, so there's some clips of these folks out there.
Yeah,
I'm asking you again. What is their motivation?
Okay,
are they being paid? Are they agents?
Well, look, there's quite a few of them. I mean, it's not necessarily, the motivation is not necessarily the same for all of them, right? I mean, people see other people getting big and then they want to follow the trends. You know, and none of us know really what's in these people's hearts or minds, so we can only speculate.
Why they hate Churchill. Why would some on the right, who are otherwise patriotic and pro-Western, increasingly attempt to denigrate his legacy, as Tucker Carlson did over the weekend in a debate with Piers Morgan?
So I'm very distressed about it. So people want to tell me Churchill's an incredible guy. Really? Well, why didn't he save Western civilization? He didn't even save Poland.
He did.
What did he?
He did save Western civilization.
How?
He defeated the Nazis.
But I know he helped defeat the Nazis, with his friend Stalin.
When you're saying that Churchill's the enemy, and that Hitler is kind of misunderstood, poor dude,
right?
When you see Netanyahu and Israel as a global agitator instead of a defender of liberties for the Jewish people, you're really taking a hard turn.
Well, you're doing exactly what the left does again, which is you're revising and you're rewriting history. This is another way that makes these pseudo-patriots woke. Because just like the left goes and tears down statues and tries to, recreate the founding of America with their 1619 project, that's exactly what these people are doing with revising World War II. You know,
where are they coming from?
So
tell me what.
Here are the possibilities. We don't know for sure. Here are the possibilities. Foreign funding is certainly a possibility. Personally, I do not believe with somebody like Tucker Carlson that's what's going on, only because he is so wealthy that I just don't think that he needs to be, take those types of, take those monies from abroad. But who knows? Maybe there's ties and business deals. Who knows? But I think it's very, very possible that some of the other figures like Dan Bilzerian or the Tates or even Candace Owens or Ian Carroll, I think it's very possible, and I would encourage people to research whether these people are funded by bad actors like Qatar or Russia. That would be the most likely, but they could also be funded by Iran or China or other enemies that we have. So that's one possible explanation. Another possible explanation is essentially that something possibly broke in the brains of these people after the pandemic, because for people who aren't in America, they might not have, they might not be able to relate to this. But during the pandemic, conservatives especially, but increasingly Democrats that then came over to the conservative side, when we called out just horrific things that we saw going on throughout the pandemic, whether it was Orwellian COVID protocols or the Russiagate scandal or Hunter Biden laptop or like the lab leak origins, theory. When we called out things that we saw going on, we were immediately labeled conspiracy theorists and we were shut down and censored. And that made a lot of conservatives become what they call black-pilled, right? Where they kind of become bitter and they see everything as kind of a conspiracy, right?
Right.
And it's very easy once that happens for you to kind of slip down the rabbit hole and end up at the Holocaust, because as we know, anti-Semitism at its core is a conspiracy theory. So
that's very interesting.
So I think that is one possible explanation.
Wait, hold on. I want to hold on that for a second. Please remember the list that you're going through of possible explanations. I have noticed that what you're saying resonates with me, because I have noticed that there is, in the United States especially, a kind of love of conspiracy theories. It's a country that, like, it's a very smart country, it has a lot of freedoms, but it loves these kooky type of, like,
characters.
Well, not always kooky. I mean, we're anti-establishment. It's in our blood.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I mean, we fought a revolutionary war we didn't want to be beholden to a centralized government. So there's something in our DNA which makes us skeptical of like the established consensus and always wanting to explore alternative narratives, as we should. That is a wonderful thing.
Right.
But we have to
right, but
have 2 feet on the ground when we're doing it.
But there might be yet another thing. One of the reasons that Jimmy Carter turned out to be a great anti-Semite and a great Israel hater was a religious perspective. He had a classic Christian perspective that Christianity superseded the Jews, that the Jews are stiff-necked, that they didn't fulfill God's will, and therefore they deserve to be punished, and they're stiff-necked to this very day.
Right.
And the advent of Israel was actually a religious problem, like a dilemma, because suddenly here's the shiny Jewish state and it looks like it's being fulfilled. And he said that the promises of the Bible are being fulfilled, and he set his heart to shrink Israel.
Right.
And he was a robust and very successful Israel shrinker. Could it be that some of these people have religious perspectives?
Some of these people, sure. I think supersession. It's possible. Supersessionism, replacement theory, all that kind of stuff. I think all of these things are correct for some people and not correct with others, and I also think it's a confluence of multiple factors for some of them. I mean, because remember, this is not a formal group of people. This woke right moniker applies to people that are groypers, like Nick Fuentes and Jake Shields.
10 years ago, when I went to Charlottesville and we said Jews will not replace us, that sort of encapsulates both of the problems, right? Which is replacement migration and if Jews run society, are they not responsible?
It's Christian nationalists like Candace Owens and Lauren Chen, health freedom advocates like Stu Peters and Simon Godek and Michael Yon, paleo conservatives like Tucker Carlson, and libertarians like Scott Horton and Dave Smith. So there's all kinds of people in this group. It's informal, and some of them don't even like each other.
Where does Alex Jones fit into all this?
So I would say Alex Jones kind of flirts with this. I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, it's tough because this isn't a formal group. You can argue with somebody in good faith about who would be considered part of this group and who wouldn't be, right? So there's kind of like the people that we all agree are part of the group, like Tucker and Candace and some of the other names that are, that I've mentioned. But then there's the people that, there's debate about it. Is Alex Jones one of these people? Is Joe Rogan one of these people, right?
Well, let's talk about Joe Rogan for a second, because I've seen some of the Joe Rogan clips. And, again, he is platforming some really hideously minded people.
Right.
And I mean, people, I haven't heard anybody like myself there. You know what I mean? I haven't heard any nationalists. I mean,
he's had Barry Weiss on.
Right.
And
Ben Shapiro.
Yes, and Coleman Hughes.
Okay.
And these people have defended Israel and defended Jews. So, I do not believe that there is any anti-Semitism in Joe Rogan's heart. I know that he came from the Occupy Wall Street left, and I know that he was affiliated with some of the people there that were anti-Semitic, so I think that his brain goes a teeny bit that way. But I don't think that there's any malice in his heart. That being said, Joe Rogan, one of the great things about him is he will literally talk to anybody.
Yeah, well, not anybody, because I haven't heard any. Well, I don't hear any pro-nationalist, pro-settler, pro-Jews of Judea and Samaria. I mean, I hear that from Pete Hegseth.
I believe if somebody sat in front of Joe Rogan and told him these things, I think he'd be interested, and I think he would have somebody like that on his show. I do.
Every conspiracy theory always goes right back to that. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
all right.
But the Mossad and the IDF and the influence on politics is pretty well established. There's both things. It's no, it's not the Jews aren't the problem in the whole world. No, and when everything goes sideways, people always do start blaming the Jews.
Always.
Was it Jordan who started talking? Where's it Gad Saad who started talking about it's one of the marks of a collapsing society when they start blaming everything on the Jews?
They blame the Black Plague on them. They're like, you guys cover your wells. My thing about that is whenever people go back on the Jews, I'm always like, yeah, do you like Hollywood? They invented that.
Yeah.
And improv.
Maybe
and
not,
monotheism.
Maybe that's not good. But then also...
And stainless steel.
Did they
and
invent
virtual
stainless
reality.
steel?
Yes, and
Well,
virtual reality.
Listen, they
and
have
laser beams.
more. Eastern European Jews have more Nobel Prizes than I think any other ethnic group.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to.
Incredible group of
And
humans.
let's just talk about art and everything else. Einstein, Freud. It just goes on and on. So you're going to have
How many
people,
comics? How many comics are
Oh
Jews?
my God!
Jesus Christ!
Some of the funniest people of all time.
One of the greatest of all time, Lenny Bruce.
Thank
Jew.
you. Groundbreakers.
The literal starter of this whole thing. we do.
Groundbreakers. Yeah.
I don't think that there's a hidden agenda with Joe Rogan, but the problem is that Joe Rogan also watches Tucker Carlson, and he's part of this new zeitgeist of pushing back against the consensus. And now that Trump is in power, and the Trump administration is essentially the establishment now, right? The anti-establishment view for them is not supporting Israel. That's like the cool thing to do now. And you were talking about like us loving conspiracy theories. Like there is this psychological glee that we get when we believe we have this like secret knowledge,
Right.
and we know the truth, and we're holding on to it, and everybody else is blind, and we're it makes us feel worthy and like our life has meaning. I think you see that a lot with
That's very
somebody
interesting.
like Candace Owens. So I think that the Christian thing is definitely, I think that, and I think one of the reasons that has been resurrected is, again, it might be a backlash to the fact that like Christians have been so held down in America. They've been so marginalized. The Ten Commandments taken out of schools and everything like that, and Christians are being, their churches are being regularly defaced in Canada and burned to the ground, let alone the persecution happening
And
abroad.
let's not forget that there's been not a few Jews on the liberal progressive left that you could react to and be like, these people are the anti-God, anti-Bible, anti-Christ, type folks, and they're this thing that they're doing is against our values.
Right.
And then that could fit right into a certain kind of Christian way of thinking.
Totally. They see Jews in America as these like liberal globalists, right?
Right.
So that's resurrecting some of the kind of like Nazi-esque, like far right kind of ideology.
Well, let me ask you this. 2 questions for you, okay? Sorry, I don't like to do 2 questions together, but I don't want to forget them. One is, but they're related. One is, how cool is this becoming? I think that the issue of cool is under thought about.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool is important.
Because remember that Elon Musk freed X. He freed X from the chains of censorship and politicization.
Right.
So these people that are saying these very blatantly anti-Semitic things, and some of them are saying them blatantly. Tucker Carlson doesn't, but some people are. They're not going to necessarily, immediately get shadow banned or suspended. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think the answer to this problem is censorship. I really don't.
Let's get to that in a second about what the answer is.
So,
but is it cool or not?
So I think now increasingly in an atmosphere in which X gives you free reign to be as conspiratorial and say the most outrageous things possible, and that's what's going to get you clicks, that's what's going to get you money, that's what's going to bring people in. Yeah, I think it's tremendously cool for these people. And I was going to say when we were talking about,
is it cool on campus? Is it cool? Is it cool out there to hate on Israel?
But I think that because this is mostly, not entirely, mostly an online phenomenon on places like X and TikTok. But because you have somebody like Tucker, who has the ear of people like Trump and Don Jr. and J.D. Vance, it can translate to the real world and to the state and to and to policy.
That was going to be my next question, which is policy.
Because we all know politics is downstream from culture.
Sure.
So if enough hearts and minds are changed by these people online, and these people have millions of followers, Tucker Carlson has more followers than there are Jews in the world. And if enough hearts and minds are changed in the Republican Party, who knows how that could shape policy.
Right. So we have this thing that, Israel doesn't always understand America, but they're like, oh yeah, the evangelicals are with us. Well, things are changing, and that could impact policy.
And I was going to say, when we were going through the reasons, the possible reasons why this is happening, right? One of the reasons we didn't get to, which we just kind of touched on, is the grift. right? So if you have like if you see people, just one or two people like Tucker or Candace making, getting so many followers, and getting so much prominence from this type of behavior, then that attracts other people who are looking for a source of online fame or fortune, and they're like, ooh, let me tap into what they're doing. And I'm sure that some of these people that have gotten, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers are just doing it because now it's cool, now it's trendy. They see how many likes and clicks it gets you.
Right.
So there's all kinds of motivations.
Well, cool is a big problem. I actually think that our beloved state of Israel is oftentimes not thinking about what's cool out there.
Right.
Like they're always thinking about what like a certain small swath of Western Europeans that like sit at The Hague and are professors, like how they think Israel is going to be moral or not. Like, are we following the laws of war? Are we being moral? Are we beholden to the this UN agreement or some charter? And what are young people, 17-year-olds, thinking? What's cool out there? They're never understanding that. They don't think about that. They actually don't think to themselves, well, when Israel's strong, is that cooler or is that less cool?
Exactly. No, of course not.
They never consider that.
No.
And in general, I think that Israel's
because this is not about morality. This is about entertainment.
Right. And even the word entertainment is, yes, but it's also like who comes out looking cool. You know what I mean? Who's like, wow, that dude is cool. That country's cool. And interesting, I have a family member who's going to be flying to Africa, and the tour guide asked her to bring with her flags of Israel, because it turns out that in Kenya or in Tanzania, like that's cool to have flags of Israel. So I was like, oh, Israel's cool in a certain part of Africa, but on Columbia campus, Israel's far from cool. Far from cool. Okay, so we also have the problem of policy. Where is this going to lead?
Right.
Is it going to lead to somebody, Trump saying, well, maybe we don't want Israel to be too strong. Maybe Israel is causing us to go into war. And indeed, the United States right now is engaged in a conflict with Yemen, which is an extension of a conflict with Iran.
Right.
And very much considering right now a conflict with Iran. But if a Tucker Carlson's whispering in the ear of Trump and he's saying all these wars, Israel's just dragging us into wars that we don't need, that could very much have a very real impact.
Yeah. I don't know if Trump could be persuaded by something like that. I think Trump understands what the woke right does not, which is that Israel, contrary to Israel dragging America in wars, Israel is precisely the reason why America has largely been able to remove itself from the Middle East, because it has Israel to rely on. It has Israel as a buffer. And I think Trump understands that, that Israel makes America more secure and stronger just by virtue of the fact that.
Okay, but he's still a politician. He still wants cool.
Sure, but I think
still wants respect out there. He still wants the numbers of approval. I'm just saying it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Right. Well, I sure, but I don't think he could be swayed by Tucker Carlson whispering something in his ear like that blatant. It would have to be much more subtle. For example,
Karis, the drip on the stone, as Rabbi Akiva taught us, when it drip on stone, it makes a hole after a while. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like this,
so it would be a drip. And we even have seen, we saw, there was something that happened like a month or two ago that people just did not take notice of, because it was just a Truth Social post. Truth Social is Trump's social media. The company that he owns. And I thought it was a huge deal. No one talked about it. But Trump posted like a 3 or 4 minute video of Jeffrey Sachs, this CCP propagandist, UN globalist. Right. And the first like 30 seconds were him talking about how Obama was responsible for the war in Syria. And then the last like 3 minutes were him not just ripping Netanyahu, but demonizing Netanyahu and essentially like singling out the state of Israel for having these like uniquely imperial goals, right? This tiny state the size of New Jersey that has these goals of expanding in this sea of like just like massive countries, but this tiny state is the one that sets Jeffrey Sachs off his rocker.
I got very nervous.
So why would he do that? Trump has good relations with Bibi. Trump has good relations with Israel. This video did not reflect Trump's views. It did not reflect Trump's policies. It has reflected none of Trump's actions or executive orders. So what happened there? Well, I would surmise, like nobody knows for sure, but I would guess that Tucker, who's a huge fan of Jeffrey Sachs, probably texted Trump this video, check this out. Trump probably watched the first 30 seconds with this guy bashing Obama, and then he puts it on his Truth Social because he trusts Tucker. I don't think Trump would have posted that if he saw the rest of the video. I doubt he watched the whole video. But then what happens? He puts it up on his Truth Social, and then you have all of these comments that are like, oh, Trump finally gets that it's the Jews. Finally, Trump is waking up to the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, right? I mean, that is damaging.
It is.
That is damaging. Because essentially what they're trying to do, what Tucker Carlson and the woke right is trying to do there is they're trying to create a new normative politics for the Trump movement. They're trying to gaslight everybody into believing that MAGA stands for what they stand for, when in reality, it doesn't. It never has.
Or they're moving it in their direction.
Right. Well, by gaslighting people and making it seem that way, it will naturally go that way. So, I mean, that's how you change parties.
Yeah,
that's how you change.
Nobody says that these guys are dumb. They're smart and they're great media people. They're great media. They're experts at their craft.
Yeah.
Karis Rea. We talked about the problem. We touched a little bit on what could be the reasons for it. Mm-hmm. You said a lot of interesting things about American mindset, conspiracy, maybe religion.
Right.
But
and if I could just say one more way that this group is really indistinguishable from the woke left, just with some tweaks here and there, is they have the woke right has an intersectional hierarchy, and instead of black people at the top or black trans women or whatever at the top, it's Christians, right? Christians are the ultimate victims, the ones being persecuted, and just like on the left where they're
Tucker loves to say that Christians are persecuted.
Exactly. So I was going to say that there's a kernel of truth to this. Of course, Christians are being persecuted in Africa, in the Middle East, in Canada, right? And to a certain extent in other Western countries as well. But just like the left ignores racism where it is and says that it sees it where it is not, right? Like the leftists level the charge of racism everywhere. The term racist doesn't mean anything anymore, right? Everybody's racist to the left. So the right...
But their anti-Jewish racism is never seen.
Of course.
Right.
But the right finds Christian victimhood where it is not, and ignores it where it is. They don't talk about the Christians being persecuted in Africa or in the Middle East. Candace gave lip service to one thing that happened in the Congo because that was such a huge story, right? But this stuff is going on every week against Christians, and she just does not talk about it. And she does not talk about the connection to radical Islam and jihadists, right? Who do they blame it on? Israel. Israel is oppressing Christians. Jews are mistreating Christians. Israel and Jews. Just like the woke left, they're finding perpetrators where they are not. And they're embracing this victimhood complex.
But that's right. But these are very good points. But the problem is, it's far from true. It's the opposite of the truth.
Completely.
And so again, we come into this question of where are they coming from? Why are they doing this? How is it going to affect policy? We discussed all that, but now let's get to one last point, which is we are not equipped right now mentally to fight this phenomenon. Yeah. We are equipped pretty poorly to fight progressive, the Red-Green Alliance, the Progressive Jihad Alliance, which we've fought not so great in my opinion, because globally left-green Jihad Alliance, the Left Jihad Alliance has actually metastasized. They've done a pretty good job of getting that idea out there.
Right.
But I'm not ready right now, and that's why I'm so happy to have you on the show today, to fight Tucker Carlson, etc. Because we understand mentally of these type of people as being our allies. So now how do I, and out there all of us, push back against these guys And how do we not become the exact people that you're talking about, where we see enemies everywhere, where we're like, we got enemies on the left and enemies on the right, and we're everywhere. We all thought that Trump and Trumpism, MAGA, was a pro-Israel movement.
Yeah.
Now we're waking up to a new reality.
It is still a pro-Israel movement, largely, and it's not like this
If I go to
phenomenon.
CPAC, what's cooler, pro-Israelism or woke rights?
Pro-Israel because it's still Mercedes and matchlaps. But there is going to be the occasional detractor at CPAC. I think that the Trump MAGA movement there's a battle for its soul right now, and it's not like these people that we're talking about make up like half of the movement. This is still a fringe group, but they have millions of followers and they're changing hearts and minds every single day. And it doesn't take that many people to hijack a party. That's what happened on the left. We saw a small group of people completely hijack, classical liberalism, and now that entire party, that the majority is completely beholden to this minority.
Imagine if they're successful, then we've lost America.
Yeah.
As an ally and as a freedom-loving, normal-thinking country, which is now thinking that, this whole Churchill thing blew my mind.
But it's bigger than that. We won't just have lost America. The world will be ruled by BRICS. There'll be no more dollar currency that everybody relies on. It'll be ruled by Iran, Russia, China, and all of their allies. Qatar and Turkey, North Korea.
If Trump has an anti-China policy, if he wants to contain China, shouldn't he also want to contain Tucker?
Yeah. But the thing is that Tucker has gotten so powerful and so influential because he did such important work during the pandemic. And he still does some important work. He still has some people on his shows revealing things about our system or about the world that are very, very, very valuable. Once you achieve a certain status in society, it's very hard to tear that down.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And these people are so busy. They don't, they're not, like duds, boring duds like I am that have time to watch these people and be like, oh my God, look at what's happening to the
You're
right.
doing a very important job for us. You're really helping us analyze and understand a problem that's sneaking up on us.
Yeah.
It's sneaking up on us, and it's endangering Israel. It's endangering freedom-thinking countries. I don't like to say the West, just because that's not a term I enjoy so much. I prefer not to think of Israel as the West, but as a hybrid of whatever. So therefore, I don't always use that term.
Interesting. But how would you respond to the idea that it's like the source of Western morality?
Good. It is. But that doesn't mean that Israel is the West. Yeah.
Okay.
Israel has had impact on any society, in every society that it's touched.
Okay.
We have had impact in the Middle East. We just read the Book of Esther, which was in Persia, and so we've had impact on this region. We've had an impact on Islam. We've had an impact throughout, and I just think of us as a hybrid people that are East and West. Our calendar is East and West.
Right.
Our country is an East and West country, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't like to align Israel with the West always. Also, I just don't want to always align with that. I want to see Israel as a kind of light to the world. But in any case, I do think there's something called, I haven't come up with the greatest name for it, but freedom-loving countries.
Ones who espouse Judeo-Christian values, maybe?
Right, so that I have a problem with that term also. Yeah. I just have a simpler term for me, which is biblical values. Biblical values,
Sure,
I feel good with that term.
Sure.
I feel safer with that term. In any case, we are, the bad guys are working hard. They are working hard.
Yes.
And they're, and I think it's important to respect them as well, to understand how serious how serious they take this. And Israel is got to wake up to this situation. You haven't given us yet suggestions about how to fight it, but we have to think about it, and we'll hear more from you. But we do have to think about how the anti-Israel narrative creeps in. Hating the Jews is an old phenomenon. Blaming the Jews is an old phenomenon.
Yeah.
And yet, there are people in the United States and around the world that see Israel, and its re-emergence as a light to the world, as a beacon of freedom, as a beacon of God's presence in this world, and of goodness and of order. And right now, that's being undermined by people on the left, by people on the right. Israel's got to wake up to it, because Israel should, in my opinion, send out a great narrative that people can cling on to. The book of Zechariah says that people are going to hang on to the strings the tzitzit strings of Jewish people and say, take me to find out about God, teach me about God. And I think that that's where we should be heading, and Jerusalem should be, a great city and a great light to the world. But there are forces that want to undermine that, and they come from different sides, and we have to be very, very cautious about that.
Whenever we're strong, we're united, we're empowered, we're fulfilling our purpose, that we overcome all the greatest traumas, all the greatest nations and civilization that have tried to destroy us. And whenever we're divided, assimilating, forgetting who we are, we go through the worst of consequences and the worst of traumas. So if we look at it
in this period of history right now, we're
completely divided, completely have no purpose, assimilating, and that's exactly when you have the rise of anti-Semitism. And of course, imagine you have a group of people who truly hate the Jews. Of course, they're going to rise when the Jews are afraid of doing anything about it. And as they get more and more within pop culture and educate more people, Jews are not doing anything, so they're allowed to stand up, they're allowed to rise up, they're allowed to take more power.
Karis, Rhea, you are a producer at Epoch Times, although your opinions today do not reflect them. You're a fellow at the Middle East Forum and many other things. You're a rising star. People could see why. You're a great Twitterer and a writer, and you are giving us analysis about what's happening in the woke right. We need to understand that. We need to prepare ourselves. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
This is Yochanan from Germany. Don't worry. God bless you. All the best. Have a l'chaim. Yishai Fleisher will be right back.
All right, we're back here on the Yishai Fleisher Show. I want to thank Yo and Mo, Yocheved and Moshe, and David, and Tabitha, and Ben for making the show possible and sending it out to the world. Thank you wherever you are, and I'm blessing you from the land of blessings. One of the people that's been a blessing in my life is the one and only inimitable and immutable Ben Bresky, our reporter at large. Although he himself is skinny, but his voice is sonorous and large. And today he's going to tell us about the various Passover traditions that are varied around the world in the Jewish world. It's one holiday, it's one people, but there's different ways to celebrate it. Here's Ben Bresky with the story of Passover.
This is a moment in Jewish history. I reached out to you, the listeners, to ask you for your Passover memories, to create an oral history and an audio montage of different people's memories from their childhoods or interesting Passover Seder experiences they've had.
Hi, my name is Rachel. Growing up, first Leilot Seder, I celebrated in Romania at a small community in Transylvania. So all our meals were communal. The community came together, which was around 200 people probably on the first night and a bit less on the second night. And we had a community seder with a few long tables. The elderly led it, people from the community who were natives, locals, and in most cases, Holocaust survivors. So this is what my Leilot Seder looked like growing up. And my first memory about this specifically is probably when I'm around 5 years old. I know that I didn't quite know how to read yet. I had to learn the Manishtana. My mother was saying it and I was repeating it after her. And I remember being quite anxious, excited before Leila Seder, having to kind of perform and stand in front of people and say the Manishtana. So that is my earliest memory. And of course, I did it, and it was a great sense of accomplishment. The Haggadah that we used, I recall, was a bilingual one. It was Hebrew and Hungarian, and I remember the pictures being very, very colorful. Haggadot and such texts were not quite in abundance in the 90s of Romania. So I remember we cherished them a lot. And even when they were starting to fall apart, we kept them together in a little binder or a little bag, and we pulled them out. And sometimes we flipped through the pages that were loose. And of course, one of the highlights of the meals was the fantastic matzah balls, which were made at the Jewish community's kosher kitchen. This community kitchen fed many Holocaust survivors and elderly without families on a daily basis, but they also cooked holiday meals. And the matzah bowl soup was always just fantastic. The size of the bowls was exceptional. They were unusually large matzah bowls and more in the light and fluffy spectrum. They were not hard, and always the boys had a race who could have more of them. I remember records being set at something like 16 or 18 matzah bowls per teenage boy. So these are some of the fun memories from my Seder nights.
My name is Rabbi Dov Peretz Elkins. Many years ago, when I was a rabbinical student, I spent a year studying at the Hebrew University and the Jewish Theological Seminary in Jerusalem. One of the professors who was related to Rabbi Simon Greenberg, Professor Ernst Simon, was a very famous philosopher and writer. Ernst Simon invited all the rabbinical students who were in Jerusalem that year to his Passover Seder. He had a custom that he would assign to his children certain passages in the Haggadah that they had to study and explain at the Seder, which he did. But the Seder was more discussion than anything else. You know, a lot of Sedarim, you have to wait a very long time till the main meal is served. And this was no exception. I think it was close to 1 o'clock in the morning by the time we had gone through the Haggadah and had our dinner. But it was a very memorable Seder. A lot of explanation, a lot of discussion, very intellectual. Professor Ernst Simon was a giant in his field, and it was really a privilege to be at his Seder table. And I always will remember that Passover Seder.
Hi, my name is Susie, and growing up in Sofia, Bulgaria, after the communism, we had a group Seder meal. We had the Seder Pesach, Masoroti, it's not religious. So we had music and we had microphone and we had everything because it was like in a big hall and everything. A few girls, we had a group for Rikudei Am, and we had a performance, some dance, and we have a choreography and everything, and we really practice about this, and everything was supposed to go well. But because of the Seder, we drank 3 maybe already cups of wine, because the 4th is the end. So I think it was after the 3rd cup of wine. We were happy and drunk and like laughing all the time, and we really like make some mistakes about the choreography, and then we laugh, and it was like laughing performance, not a dance performance. But it was fun.
Hi, my name is Eitan. My first Pesach memory might be a little bit different from most people. It's not necessarily singing Manishtana or looking for the Afikoman. I was a 7-year-old kid living in the Soviet Union with no idea of what Judaism was or that there were any Jews in the world. My parents were refuseniks, Misravei Aliyah, waiting to leave the country for many years. My dad was studying Hebrew secretly. My first Pesach memory was when we got on the plane leaving the Soviet Union in 1989 after Gorbachev allowed the Jews to leave. My father saying, "We're leaving Egypt." And that's the first notion I had of there ever even existing any Jews and what it meant to be leaving slavery, what that whole situation encompassed for me and for many others like me. For me, it was really leaving Egypt in modern day. I really merited that with my family to be free of slavery.
My name is Lauren Stein, and growing up in Toronto, the Passover Seder was my favorite Jewish holiday. My whole big family would get together, multiple generations, and it was so much fun. Although a growing number of adults would think that it was too much and they didn't want to have to do all of it. And it got to the point where my great-grandfather, Alav Shalom, was the only one who would read Hallel and all the rest of the stuff after the meal alone, while everyone else would just run around and do whatever. As the generations passed by and it came time that my parents were hosting the Seder, it got to the point that once it was time for the meal, finally, and then everything after that was forgotten about. One year, while we were cleaning up and getting the place ready for the Passover Seder, we actually found the afikomen from the previous year because it had been hidden, but we just never got around to the part where a child finds it. So there it still was. Now I live in Jerusalem and the Seder is still exciting. And I make a point of spending it with people who actually finish and do the whole thing. And I love it.
Once I was at a communal Pesach Seder in America that was led by a rabbi that did Kiruv. And there were about 20, 25 people there. And he told us that once we eat the first matzah, that it's very important not to say anything until we eat a full kazayit. And he told us a full kazayit was a whole round matzah. So I remember we were given the matzah and we just started chewing and nobody talked. And we just were present, enjoying the taste of the matzah and looking at each other and looking in each other's eyes. And it was very peaceful, very present, beautiful moment because we were being freed from Mitzrayim, eating this healing matzah bread. We didn't distract ourselves with talk, and it was actually quite beautiful.
My name is Neely Salem, and I grew up in Westwood, Los Angeles, California. My parents used to make an amazing experiential Seder. First of all, guests were invited to come in their robes. My mom would put scarves on their head just so they'd look more biblical. The front entrance was decorated with blue ribbons so that when people came in, they had the experience of walking through the sea. But then the best part was for the kids, we stood on the other side of the blue ribbons with squirt guns and spray bottles. And so as the guests walked in, we used to spritz them with water. It was really so fun. And the plagues, also, my parents were really creative. My dad would take a big clear goblet and he had a layer of red food dye at the bottom of the glass, but he would hold the glass so that you wouldn't be able to see the food coloring. And then he would say to me right before we got to blood, "Neely, I'm really thirsty. Can you pour me some water?" And I would come with a clear pitcher of water and I would pour into his clear glass, but then it would come up red and everyone would be like, "Oh, what's going on? The water is turning to blood." It just so happened that my mom had a frog collection of frog toys, so she would decorate the whole table with those. For wild animals, my mom would sneak out during the Seder and put a big animal mask on and then come back in roaring over people's heads. One time, the news station came to film Passover Seder so they could show Passover in LA, and that was also very exciting. And of course, hiding the afikomen in bizarre places was always fun. It's also exciting as an adult that I got to lead Seder in Zimbabwe, Rwanda, Ethiopia, India. In India, we slaughtered a lamb, whatever. I don't know the difference because I'm a vegetarian. And then they collected the blood. They thought it was the Passover sacrifice. They collected the blood, and then we went door to door and put blood on the doorposts of their huts. Talk about that one.
My name is Ita Bechar. So basically, my family, the Bechar family, is originally from Spain. Over 500 years of heritage, of language, of tradition were brought to Turkey and all the way to Israel. And one of the things that I remember as a kid growing up in Leil HaSeder, one of the things that we are always doing is that we read every single chapter of the Haggadah in the instructions, if you will, in Ladino, in a special tune. So, for example, as soon as we sit around the table, we would read it from Rashi writing, written in Ladino language, and would say, for example, Kadesh. Kadesh is the first chapter of the Haggadah. It says, Kadesh, saliendo de Arvid cuando se escurece, y enchirán los vasos de vino, y dirán Kiddush. That basically means, Kadesh, the first chapter of the Haggadah, you're leaving Arvit, the Marev service from synagogue. When it is dark, you got to make sure that it's dark, and you have to fill up the glasses of wine and start saying Kiddush. So this is something that strikes me a lot when I was a kid. I didn't understand why do we have so many different traditions? We have the Haggadah, most of it written in Aramaic, and then in Hebrew, and then you're adding some traditions from Ladino. I'm proud of it, and I will continue teaching it to my son. It's something that I would always take with me. And another thing that we always add, other than the Pirushim in Ladino, is that we always begin the Haggadah with Bivhilu Yatsanu Mimitzrayim. And then we jump all the way to Halachma Anya. Bivhilu Yatsanu Mimitzrayim, meaning that we basically got out of Egypt in a lot of rush. And only then we start with Halachma Anya. I believe that like any other family who's reading the Haggadah, as soon as we get to the end of the first part of it, we always debate if we should continue or not. We always continued with the second part of the Haggadah. Also, we have this tradition when we say the 10 plagues, that obviously we're not allowed to look at the father or the one who's leading the Haggadah. We don't want those plagues, God forbid, to come on us. So we cover our eyes, and the person who's leading the Haggadah is doing this. I can tell you that 2 years ago, I took my family all the way to Istanbul after many, many years that they haven't been there. And we joined our extended family who still lives in Istanbul. And it was amazing because, first of all, it's the exact same tradition, the exact same tunes, the exact same food that we have. But it was not only in Hebrew, in Aramaic, and in Ladino. Now they added Turkish to all of this. I believe that tradition is amazing. It is part of us, even though we are here in the state of Israel, reviving our ancient traditions in the Hebrew language in our free country. But it is always good to take what our ancestors did and continue teaching it to our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Chag Sameach to everyone.
This has been a moment in Jewish history. Thank you to all the people who wrote in and sent their recordings. Thank you to Yishai Fleisher. Thank you to all the listeners. Happy Passover and Shalom.
All right, that was great Passover stuff and traditions with the one and only Ben Bresky. Thank you, Ben. And now, just to do a little Torah, we have a special guest. We have Rabbi Shimshon Nadel, who was on Israeli radio, and he sent me the recording of his discussion there about the upcoming holiday of Passover, which begins the time for the Jewish people. And here he is on Israeli national radio talking about the meaning of Passover. Here's Rabbi Shimshon HaKohen Nadel.
This year, Erev Pesach, Passover Eve, coincides with Shabbat, and the Seder is Saturday night. The last time this occurred was 2021, and the next time won't be for another 20 years. When Erev Pesach coincides with Shabbat, we are confronted with a number of unique questions and challenges, but it also provides us with an opportunity to enter the holiday and experience the Seder better rested and a little more relaxed than in a typical year. Here are some guidelines and tips to help you navigate this year's differences. In a year like this, the fast of the firstborn is advanced to today, Thursday. The search for chametz is performed Thursday night with a blessing, and following the blessing, one nullifies his chametz as in a typical year. On Friday morning, the chametz is burned, except for any chametz which is to be eaten Friday night or Shabbat morning. The proper practice is to burn the chametz before the 6th hour, which is 11:20 here in Jerusalem, so as not to get confused in future years. One does not recite the final nullification at this time, as chametz may still be eaten Friday and Shabbat morning. For the Shabbat meals, some use bread, others use matzah ashira, egg matzah, as it is forbidden to eat real matzah Erev Pesach, so as to ensure that one eats the matzah at the Seder with an appetite and excitement. As the home is already kosher for Pesach, and all of the utensils are Pesach-dik, one using bread should eat the chametz with great care. It's best to use disposable utensils, plastic tablecloths, etc. One using chametz for his meal must finish eating chametz before Sof Zman Achilat Chametz, 10:10 here in Jerusalem on Shabbat morning. Following the meal, one should collect all of the leftover crumbs and dispose of them in public garbage cans, or disperse them into the wind, or flush them down the toilet. The final verbal nullification is made Shabbat morning before the 6th hour, 11:20 here in Jerusalem. There are 3 options for Su'udah Shlishit, the third meal. The first, one may divide his morning meal into 2, fulfilling both the obligation of having a morning Shabbat meal and a Su'udah Shlishit, a third meal. One makes Kiddush, washes his hands, makes Hamotzi, eats, recites Birkat Hamazon, and then takes a short break before washing again, making another Hamotzi, and having a second meal. If using chametz, one must ensure to be finished with both meals by 10:10, and any and all chametz must be properly disposed of, and the nullification is recited, as I just mentioned. The second option for the third meal, those B'nai Edot HaMizrach, Sfardim, can have matzah ashira up until the 10th hour of the day, which is 3:55 here in Jerusalem, and so they may use matzah ashira and have Su'udah Shlishit later in the day. Most Ashkenazim refrain from eating matzah ashira once the chametz is prohibited, 10:10 here in Jerusalem, as I mentioned, but some authorities allow even Ashkenazim to eat matzah ashira up until the 10th hour, 3:55 p.m. And finally, the third option, one may have Su'udah Shlishit later in the day without bread, as bread is prohibited, without matzah, as matzah is prohibited, and those who don't eat matzah ashira later in the day, or if it's past the 10th hour, one can have some meat, chicken, fish, vegetables, fruit, etc., to fulfill the obligation in the third meal. Now, in a typical year, there's always a question what one can eat on Erev Pesach. The kids are always asking, Abba, Ima, Mommy, Daddy, what can we eat? On Erev Pesach, as I mentioned, one may no longer eat chametz from the 5th hour, 10 a.m. here in Jerusalem. It's prohibited to eat matzah, as we mentioned. Matzah ashira, there are different customs, as I mentioned. But one can eat matzah cooked in liquid, like knedlach, matzah balls, up until the 10th hour of the day, but not items baked with matzah meal, like kugels or cakes on Erev Pesach. In addition to the prohibition of eating matzah on Erev Pesach, the custom is also to refrain from eating the simanim of the Seder, like maror, charoset, karpas, etc. And in general, one should be careful not to eat too much late in the day, so as to ensure that he or she has an appetite for the matzah eaten at the Seder. Candles may not be lit, nor any preparation for the Seder done before the conclusion of Shabbat, which here in Jerusalem is 7:43 p.m. After the conclusion of Shabbat, one should say Baruch HaMavdil Bein Kodesh LeKodesh and light the Yom Tov candles from a flame that was lit before Shabbat, like a Yahrzeit candle, a memorial candle, and make the blessings like in a typical year. The maror, charoset, shankbone, roasted egg, etc. should have already been prepared before Shabbat. When Yom Tov begins on Saturday night, as it does this year, there is a special Kiddush Yak Nahaz, which stands for Yayin Kiddush Ner Havdalah Zman, as we include the blessing over the flame, as well as the blessing of Hamavdil. While making the blessing over the flame, Borei Morei Ha'esh, one looks at the light of the Yom Tov candles. While reciting the Haggadah this year, in the blessing of Asher Ge'alanu, the blessing of redemption, Birkat HaGeula, we replace Min HaZvachim u'Min HaPsachim with Min HaPsachim u'Min HaZvachim. I think that covers most of it. Wishing all of the listeners a Chag Kasher V'Sameach, a happy and healthy Passover. May it be a time of redemption for us as a nation and as individuals. Amen.
My name is David Greco from Nashville, Tennessee. You're listening to the Yishai Fleisher Show. When I get home, I like to kick back with a beer and listen to the Yishai Fleisher Show. Don't be afraid. Yishai Fleisher Show will be right back, so stay tuned.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi Shimshon HaKohen Adel. That was great. And Pesach is indeed upon us, and I want to wish you all a blessed Passover and blessed beginnings, because Pesach signifies new beginnings and a new year and a new approach. And there's a lot of stuff in the Jewish world that we need a better approach to, a renewal or awakening, and Hashem gives us that opportunity. So I want to bless you with great new beginnings, and that we make constantly new beginnings and not fall into believing that we're stuck in our old ways. May we break out of ruts and personal slaveries and the slavery that we put upon ourselves with our own self-image, which is oftentimes a lie that we tell ourselves. May Hashem help us break out of that and come into a new reality and a new awareness and a new path. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Happy Pesach. Write me an email, yishai@yishaifleisher.com. Stay tuned, stay calm, stay connected. You can also support our show through buymeacoffee.com/Yishai, and send me love as I'm sending you love. Send me blessings as I'm sending you blessings. And let's stay connected and stay strong together. Lots of love and shalom.